bit weirdly, I went to Loughborough and did sports science, and probably very naively didn't know what I was going to do or get into, I was playing rugby at the time, and the rugby club said, come play for us and we'll get you a job. And they sort of looked at what I'd done in my degree, and a large part of that was marketing and sort of business studies and that sort of economics and things. And so they basically said, look, one of our sponsors is here, we can give you a job in a little sort of marketing agency. And so yeah, I sort of stumbled across it, which is probably quite bad. No, the big thing there was sort of doing sports sponsorship and things, which was really interesting to me. So sort of taking all the things, or some of the modules that I'd done at university, and actually applying them. But what I sort of learned quite quickly was that the textbook theories that you learn at university aren't always implemented when doing a day-to-day job. So yeah, that's sort of how I get into it. My now wife, she always wanted to work in London and always wanted to work in marketing. She was working at a large betting company in their marketing department, and I was getting harassed to move to London. So I started looking at jobs in London for different companies. Very naively, because the agency that I worked for up in Nottingham was very small. We didn't know, I didn't know much about the industry, and so luckily the media agency that my wife used, it was a media and digital agency that they used, were looking for someone, and so they sent me the job spec. I had a look at it. Everything that I'd learned in my small agency, which was a very wide and different role, everyone sort of pulling their weight in different departments, it sort of looked quite similar, and so it was a sort of a new business assistant role at a prestigious agency called Wheel back then, that was then bought by LBI, and so it was really about, my first real steps, I'd probably say, was moving to London, moving to a very well-known established agency, and really learning about the industry.
Okay.
And really sort of getting to grips with marketing properly, really, and that's where London is a hub for it, and it's massively important for my growth specifically in this sector sort of thing. I would always say that new business for an agency is the lifeblood of an agency. It's for me, I would say this, but it's the most important thing within an agency. What does my role entail? It's quite a varied role. It is a centralised role that means that I cover a lot of all the PR of the agency, all the marketing of the agency, all the business development, or a large part of the business development of the agency, all the new business of the agency, a lot of internal comms, external comms, obviously that fits within the marketing of it. So it's a very, very wide spanning role. But the great thing is that part of our role is to you do a bit of account handling, you do a bit of planning, you do a bit of project management. Sometimes you actually play a creative role, even though I'm told not to quite often. So it actually covers a large breadth. But the reason why it's important is because we are a central hub to the business. Everything or a large proportion of the things going through the agency evolve around the new business, business development function, whether that be new projects that are going out that we're looking to PR, or pitches that we're running. Everything is running through us, sort of thing, which makes it a very varied and fun and interesting role. Yeah, it is, yeah. I look back and probably 4 or 5 years ago, the best part of my job, I would have said, being more junior back then, was that I could work with all the senior people. And it's probably quite an arrogant thing per se, but I was working with all heads of departments, CEOs, MDs, creative directors, whereas I think sometimes when you're actually perhaps say in account handling, you may not get that exposure at other agencies. I know we do here specifically, but other agencies don't get that exposure to the senior people, and learning and listening to them and seeing how they do it and understanding how they got into the position they are was a really good learning curve for me. Whereas now, I'd like to think of myself as probably one of the people that people look up to, the more junior people. So it is now, it's being varied, and the thing is that I think a lot of roles you sit there and you plan your day out or you plan your week out. My wife gets quite annoyed because I can't plan things in the evenings because I just don't know what's going to happen that day. I could think I'm going to have a lovely week and it's not going to be too bad and things, but actually something comes in and you've got to turn it around really quickly. And that's the nature of new business. Is a real, the clients dictate the deadlines and we need to adhere to them. And so, your life can get turned around quite quickly. But within that, it's about juggling on the plates. You have several things going on. What is the priority and what are the deadlines, sort of thing. And that is, that's the best part of the job, sort of thing. Attention to detail is massive. That is probably a very generic thing across all roles, specifically if you want to work in a good agency like ours. But attention to detail is huge. One of the big things that I learned when moving into new business at the start was, with tenders, for example, if you don't read the tender specifically and understand the rules and regulations that you need to adhere to, if you don't stick to them, you're going to be, you've done all that work and you're not actually going to be taken through because you haven't hit the deadline, or you haven't done it in the right format, or you haven't, written it in the right size font, or whatever, the right number of pages, sort of thing. So attention to detail is massively important. I think you need to have an attitude that is, you're never going to stop, sort of thing. It's quite tenacious, if you like, because new business is hard work. It's a lonely place because generally the departments for new business are a lot smaller than account handling or planning, etc. And you need to have a never say die attitude, because you are always going to be the bottom of the list of priorities for account handlers, for planners. If you're pushing massively to get a piece of PR for something, the account handler and the project manager are more focused on actually delivering the project to the best of their ability than actually PRing it, because that is obviously the client's focus as well. So you're going to get a lot of knockbacks, but you've just got to keep going and keep going and keep going. But which sort of joins to that is actually communication with people, knowing and learning and understanding about people and how they work, how they evolve, how they like to do things. Some people like to be sent an email and asked to do something. Some people you need to stand next to them and ask them to do it. Some people need to ring. It's sort of being a bit of a chameleon, really.